Glue Guys is proud to have Ramp as the first presenting sponsor of the podcast. I was shocked to learn that most financial teams spend 80% of their time doing operational work and only 20% of their time doing strategic work. Ramp flips that equation. This financial operations platform simplifies everything about how businesses spend money and spend their time. With Ramp, you can manage spend approvals, control your expenses, automate your accounting, track your vendor relationships, and even book your travel. Ramp enables finance teams to focus all of their attention on what's most important. It allows companies to issue physical and virtual cards to every employee with spend limits, category restrictions, and automated compliance checks to ensure spend outside of expense policy is never allowed to happen. Ramp eliminates both manual expense reports for employees and removes the need for accountants to spend hundreds of manual hours each month classifying transactions so financials are accurate. The Ramp team is all in on saving their customers time and money. Ramp is used by best-in-class businesses like Shopify, Airbnb, Anduril, and many more. They all use Ramp to manage their spend and automate away tedious financial processes that just distract from the main thing. Ramp is easy to use. Get started now and build a more efficient team and a more profitable business. Whether you have 5 employees or 25,000, go to ramp.com/GG to sign up for free and get a $250 welcome bonus. That's ramp.com/GG.
All right, Glue Guy listeners, let's talk about something that might just change the way you sleep forever. 8 Sleep. You've probably heard of the pod, right? I mean, if it's good enough for Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, it's probably worth checking out for yourself. But they've just upped their game with the Pod 4 Ultra, the new gold standard in intelligent sleep systems. Now, here's the deal. The Pod 4 Ultra is like having a climate-controlled assistant in your bed. No, not like that, you freaks, but it is simple. You just add it to your current mattress like a fitted sheet and boom, it automatically cools or warms each side of your bed. So no more battles over the thermostat with your partner, no more blanket tug of war. It's all been settled. It's been clinically proven to give you up to an hour more quality of sleep every night, which, I mean, who couldn't use that? The standout feature here is the cooling capability. This thing can cool your side of the bed to 20 degrees below room temperature. Perfect for those hot summer nights. Now imagine setting your bed to a perfect 55 degrees while you're in a deep sleep, all managed by the Pod's autopilot feature, which adjusts the temperature throughout the night. So you get a deeper, more restorative sleep even without thinking about it. Unbelievable. Now, I took over 1,000 naps over the course of my 13-year NBA career. I played well over 1,000 games. And Michael Lewis once called me the no stats all-star. Now, if I had 8 sleep during my career, I would have been the stats all-star. Seriously. Sleep is the new Rolex, it's the new Mercedes, it's the new luxury brand. So why wouldn't you want the best sleep money can buy, the best sleep possible? Now, the best part, you can add the Pod 4 Ultra to any bed, whether you're just an athlete trying to optimize recovery or someone looking to improve your quality of life. So right now, you can get $350 off the Pod 4 Ultra at 8sleep.com/Glue Guys. Just use the code Glue Guys. Level up your sleep and thank me later.
When I was down in the military center doing my rehab, they call this thing called group suck. And it's basically like doing hard stuff is easier as a team, right? Like that's like the philosophy. And like their whole motto, right, is like group suck. And a little bit of it's like embrace. Like when you're with your guys next to you, like as a team, like you can embrace it. You know, when you're by yourself, things can be daunting and like overwhelming. And it's like very real. Like when I was very much like, I felt like I was on my own when I was in Virginia. And then when I went down there was like this connection. And again, like attacking things together where you can see like the guy next to you charging and you're like, oh shit, I better try. You know, like, I don't know. Like there's just this. Totally. So I thought maybe there was something there off the suck.
Totally.
You know, embrace the suck.
There's something about sacrifice being a very short-term concept, because the long-term, like that's where all the good stuff comes from, is like when you've sacrificed, like you get a bunch of long-term stuff. And so it's this interesting thing where it's like presented as like this very negative, you have to give something up. But what you're actually doing is like investing to get something for the future. It's actually quite different. It's like you're buying something now, so you lose the money now, but you get all of it in 5 years or 10 years or 2 years. But like sacrifice is an investment. It's not actually like a loss, you know? And I think there is something, I don't know, there's something to that.
I think teaching kids that's hard too. Like
Yeah, it's like the marshmallow test.
Shane, I wanted to ask you this because this is like, I've told Roddy about this, but this is like absolutely prevalent in the NFL level, are negative coaches. Like coaches that like before games are like, we can't do this. We can't turn the ball over. No penalties, no sacks. Like, you know, like it was all these like negative things. And also, I kid you not, 95% of my quarterback coaches, like when I threw a ball low, would be like, got to get it up. You know, and when I put it behind him, when I threw it behind a guy, they'd be like, you got to get it out in front. And it's like, no shit. Like, I know that before you do. Like, this is what I do for a living, you know, like, and very few, Andy Reid being one of them, would be like, well, maybe it's because you took a too big a stride here. You see how you were like maybe too tall, like, you know, like actually like trying to help me solve the problem. But the vast majority of like, I think NFL coaches and people think they're the best of the best. It's like, if I threw a ball too far in front, they'd be like, oh, you got to put it on him. You know, like I'm like, thanks. You're really helping me here. You know, like you're really helping me reach my potential. But I don't know if it's the same in basketball. And they were like, they were all these like negative coaches. That's what like I got to the NFL and was like, well, you can't turn the ball over. You can't take a sack here. You can't do this. And like you walked out on the field and I was like, oh, fuck, what can I, you know, like that's all I'm thinking about is like what I can't do.
There's so much into that, like coaching. And like, look, I had an embarrassment of Hall of Fame coaches. So I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because like literally like every coach I played for is in the Hall of Fame, right? Compared to, my best friend, Mike Dunleavy, who played for one Hall of Fame coach, Coach K, that was it. Yeah. And then his pro coaches were a string of guys that were just, Jags, just guys.
Not Hall of Famers.
Not Hall of Famers, put it nicely. And so, look, in any industry, I think people always want to show their value. So if you don't say anything, it's like, well, I'm not doing my job, right? So you're paying me to tell you that, hey, get the ball up, throw the ball behind, right? I don't know. I think that's human. This is human nature.
No, and in fact, half the time they're saying it loud enough that everybody hears.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody.
Yeah.
Get it down.
Yeah. In sports, especially, although it'd be different now. Like it'd be interesting to go in the locker room now, and because coaches now are much more collaborators than actual coaches. And we grew up in the era where it was almost a paternal figure, and it wasn't a collaboration. Ultimately, it was, but it was very one sided. The great coaches I played for made it feel like a collaboration, but it was still like their ideas, right? And so the best coaches that I played for, obviously Coach K, Coach K, made us feel like we couldn't fail. And because of the work, because of everything we put into it, the attention to detail, the level of like concentration that we were demanded every single day. When you got to the games, it was like, no, man, like these are games. Like these are an extension of our practices. They're an extension of who we are. And so like we shouldn't do anything different. We don't have to be anyone different, whether it was exhibition game or a national championship game. We just had to be the best version of ourselves. And when I play, like the coaches that I wouldn't put in that category, I did think fell more into the negative feedback loop, and not a lot of the positive feedback wasn't authentic. And I never felt that like it was genuine. You wanted me to do well. You wanted the team to be a reflection of you, right? And the best coaches I played for it was a reflection of us. And it was, it was our journey.
I wonder if there's something there with like coaching and being like, or a leader being a psychologist, because I couldn't agree with you more. The best coaches I played for, half of it was when I walked on the field, I played free, and I thought I was very confident that we were going to win, and I was going to play well, like within the system. and it was the exact opposite. And I don't think and it wasn't like from the results that we had or something. Like it just was the way the culture was and the way they built us up and maybe built me up. And then vice versa, the horrible coach. Again, it was this negative cycle where it was like I walked on the field apprehensive and like, tiptoeing around, which is a disaster.
But don't you think that like every guy's different? And so I think the psychologist part of every great coach, they know like what every guy needs. Because there were teammates that needed a kick in the ass every single day, right? There were some that were moonshots and you had to tell them like, dude, focus every single day. And when they got that from the coach, like they were awesome. And there were some players, like yourself, like, no, dude, I got it. I got it. Just point me in the direction and I got it. Right. And so like, I think that's part of leadership and great coaches. Like you just have to know your people and you have to know like what each person needs. And that's like exhausting, right? That's like so tiring to think about your people constantly and give them what they need on an individualized basis to get the best out of them.
For sure. It's like the spectrum of like tough love. And I think Ravi calls it like, what's he called? Sensitive. And we're like, what I'm saying? Like you've got the tough part and you've got the love part. And I think good leaders are both, but like some guys need built up. So they need a lot of love. You know what I'm saying? Like like guys maybe that are hard on themselves or something. You got to like constantly be loving them up and building them up. And like, certainly at the knuckleheads that are like overly confident, you're doing the other thing on, you're trying to like,
Yep.
rein them in.
When I think about it though, like the best coaches I played for, Coach K and Eric Spoelstra, Rick Adelman, Jeff Van Gundy, very demanding. All right. Expectations are very high. So I don't think it's a matter of expectations. I think the difference is, I think every coach has expectations of like concentration and effort and humility and all that stuff. But the great coaches I played for, said, I expect a lot out of you because I know you can do it. And it's like, I'm saying this because I believe you can do it. And we all want someone to believe in us and say, yeah, okay, yeah, I can do this, even though it's hard.
They gave us an edge though, too, from a team psychology perspective. Like forget the individuals, but like as a group, they always like built the edge. Even I wonder, like even when at Duke, when you guys were favorites, sometimes like right? Like I feel like the way you talk about him, like he gave you guys an edge though, right? Like the way he he would challenge you.
In a very different way than Urban. So like, Urban yesterday, the story was that he always instilled in you us against the world mentality, right? And I guess Coach K did in a different way, but like Coach K looked at ego and expectation as a positive. There's a great story when Coach K first got to the Olympic team. I forgot what year it was, like 2010. You got Kobe in there and LeBron and D Wade and Katie, all these guys. Most coaches would say, look, you need to check your ego at the door because this is about USA basketball. And we're not going to win unless we are, unified. And Coach K walked in and said the exact opposite. He's like, we have the best players in the world. Why would I want you to check your ego? Well, why would I want Kobe Bryant to check his ego at the door when he's Kobe friggin' Bryant, right? LeBron, I want you to be you. Now the difference is we need to do this in the framework of our team and have a collective ego too, which has to be larger than the individual ego. But like, I don't want you to be, and so, our times at Duke, he laughed. Whenever there was like a story about us, the people were hating on us, whatever. He's like, guys, the fact that they're talking about you like this, all right, feel good about that. You got to worry about when no one's talking about you, because the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love and hate is apathy, right? He's like, we're playing some podunk school. Like no one ever asks like what happened to that guy who went to the school, because no one cares. No one cares. He's like, the second no one cares about Duke basketball, now we have to worry. But the fact that we sell at every gym we walk into, every year when the schedule comes out, we are the first team people look up. When do we play Duke? When do we play Duke? And that was North Carolina A&T. That was North Carolina. When do we play Duke? When and where? And so the biggest game of the year for every team that we ever played for against was Duke. And so he's like, you got to understand, like, so this is the game of the year. We get 30 games of the year every single night. And you know that people are going to get their rest. They're going to get their, extra shots up. This is their chance to make a mark. And so you have to be prepared to take the competition's best shot every single night. But what Coach K said, it was awesome. He's like, our goal is not to win the game. Our goal is to make the other team rationalize that it's okay to lose to Duke.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because he's like, look, no one is ever going to lose their job. No one's ever going to write an op-ed, a scathing op-ed. You lost to Duke. I can't believe you lost. It's okay. It's acceptable to lose to Duke, but you have to be the Duke that shows up. So if you come to the game and you're confident and you got, good, Coach K is big on body language, that look in your eye, you're standing tall, you're connected, you're playing your tails off, right? And all of a sudden you jump on someone and you're up by 20 points. There's no one who's going to say like, man, we got these guys. We can beat them. No, they're going to say, you know what? It's Duke and it's okay that we lost this game. Who do we play next? And so our goal was get people to rationalize before we would rationalize. And we were never allowed to rationalize. And so like that was the game within the game that Coach K played with us. It was the mental edge. We were trying to crush people's spirit and their minds, not necessarily physically. And, we won a lot of games. We won a lot of games that way.
What I like to do is he's still challenging you guys though there, It's almost like not okay just to win, right? Like, no, it's like there's a standard here, right? And we're going to play, and can you guys play up to this? And can we, as opposed to like being the favorite and again, like the negative aspect of it, or what you guys didn't take the court thinking like, oh God, what if it
was always about standards.
One thing I always like too about what I read about Coach K, and Shane, you tell me if this is true, but this whole concept of, if you win one, you're not defending it. You're just trying to go win another one. Right. And I like that. Like it's not, that was already won. We're not defending that one. And then the other thing I like was he said one time when you win, if you start to feel relief rather than joy, that is not where you want to be. Right. Because all of a sudden, like the only positive thing you could ever feel is relief. That's not good enough for all the work you have to put into. Right. So you have to get it back where like, it's got to be joy that you get to feel when you win rather than just like, oh, okay. I got through that.
100%. 100%. We had amazing gratitude, just for the opportunity to compete. And so we never took any practice, any exhibition game, any team against those, last place in the ACC. Like it meant something because Duke was playing. And so like Coach K had an amazing story. Like Coach K has got a really, really difficult last name. It's very long. All right. KRZYZEWSKI. That's a mouthful. But if you ever saw Coach K's signature on a ball or on a pitcher, it is meticulous. You can make out every single letter. And it takes him a long time to think about how many autographs Coach K signs in a year, right? And it's legible and it's perfect every single time. And he told us, you know why I do this, guys? Because it's my name and it means something. I could scribble my name that, and put something down that no one else could read, but this means something to me. And so like every time you put the Duke uniform on and you see Duke, whether it's practice or whether it's a polo shirt after practice or the game jersey, like Duke means something. So like, why wouldn't you give it your best shot? You're representing yourself, you're representing Duke. This means something. And that's like 24/7. So when you say it like that, like, yeah, I'm going to give it my all every single time, whether it's practice or post-practice or in school or in a game. And, he really gave us ownership of our program, of our name. And like, that's an amazing lesson to teach people, to take ownership in what they're part of, not just one part, every part.
Yeah, you can't pick and choose. Like you can't raise the standard in certain areas of your life. You can't expect to. Like I think that's crazy. Like you either hold yourself all the time to some level or you don't. Like you
exactly.
Can't be sloppy over here and then be like, well, I'm going to be, organized and diligent over here. It just doesn't work that way. By the way, I have a similar experience when I signed my name. Alex Smith. 9 letters, pretty tough.
It's your name. It means something.
So lame.
It also just happens to be a lot of other people's names, like just.
So, Robbie, when you hear stories like this, like, is there anything that's similar at KKR? Is Henry Kravis coming in and using these metaphors? I mean, it's sports. Look, every coach is borrowed from somebody else and change names in the faces. And so when you hear these stories of the locker room and they're fun stories for Alex and I to live them, but like we grew up with that. So like they're diamond dust and they're awesome. But like do you think of George Roberts and when you bring it into the office and giving you these analogies like that like we felt?
First emotion you feel when I hear these stories is like envy, right? Because the things you guys earned and got to do and got to be a part of, they're like, many kids' dreams, certainly my dream, right? And so that's the first emotion is just like, man, like that is so cool, that you guys got to go through that. Even the hard shit that you mentioned, right? Like, and maybe especially the hard shit, but like the stories from Urban, the stories from Coach K. And I would say particularly the Coach K ones, because like, my dad went to Duke for his PhD. So I love Duke ever since I was a kid. So like the idea that you like played for him and, you heard all this and were there, and this is all stuff I would read about. So that's the first emotion. In business, like, look, I've been very, very, very lucky. I mean, because the places I've worked have had amazing people. The leadership I feel like in a business context that I've observed is often our leaders oftentimes are like better players than we are, if you think about it, right? So like George, he did it. Henry, he did it. I mean, they like, Mike Moritz, Doug Leone, Roelof Botha, these guys, they've done it. And I think that's a different feeling, right? Because a lot of times what they're doing is telling you stories from their days, right? And it's less about like trying to inspire you with, here's what you can go do, but more just like, look at guys, there's nothing in your way. Like, let me just tell you about this thing that we did. So George's, the most powerful stories that Henry and George would tell us were just like them leaving Bear Stearns when they were 32 and starting KKR with nothing and kind of being like, look, guys, like this whole thing you see, it was built from two cousins that just like decided to be fearless. And their whole thing was, we need to maintain the entrepreneurial spirit. I think what most like founders and most leaders are terrified of is their organization losing the spirit that made it who they were, And so the stories I remember, they're so funny because they're so different than yours. But like one of the stories Henry would always tell was like, we decided we wanted to buy this company and, we didn't have the money. And he's like, so, I dictated a letter to my assistant. He's like literally, like he's not typing it himself. He's like, I just like dictated this letter to my assistant. I told her to put it in the mail and send it to the CEO. Like, we're going to buy this company. And you're just like, think about how crazy this is. Like some, Henry Kravis walking around, like talking to his assistant. She's typing furiously. And then they like put a paper letter in the mail to this like CEO who receives it being like, KKR wants to buy your company for, X billion dollars. And it's just like, but the big thing that you kind of notice is just like brass balls, like he doesn't know where the money's coming from. He doesn't know if they can do it, but he's just like, whatever, we'll figure it out, And so then his point is always like, guys, like you have every advantage here. We've already given you the funds. Like you have this name. We were nobodies and we were out doing stuff. Like, let's go. But I think the biggest difference is like generally our leaders are better players than we were. And that is really different, I think, than what you guys always, deal with in terms of your great coaches. But the biggest thing they're trying to pass along a lot of times is like, just go play, just be fearless, And, it reminds me a little bit of Harbaugh with you, Alex, of like, play as fast as you can, play as hard as you can, and don't worry. That is like so much of what all the great leaders I've seen is they just try to be like, just go play. Like, just don't think about it so much, But yeah, that's different.
I feel like every great coach, and this is even to that psychology and that edge, right, of a team and how they play, whether, even going back to like to the chip on your shoulder, does the team play with a chip? Every great coach I played for, like when I took the field, and Jim Harbaugh was one of them, like we took the field like that. Like we had something to prove and we played free. We didn't ever step on the field thinking about making a mistake, right? Like, and part of it also because mistakes weren't, you didn't get crushed for mistakes. Like Jim was one of the first ones. Like I didn't get absolutely hammered if I threw a ball low, right? Like again, I didn't have a coach screaming to get the ball up. Like it just, so it was a culture and also, so again, yeah, like again, his last two words before he took the field were literally "Don't worry," right? Like just play friggin' as hard as you can, play with your hair on fire, and we'll figure it out. And this also, again, in practice, you'd have do-over coaches. This is for everybody out there, and I hated do-over coaches, right? Like so, there's an expectation, sometimes this crazy expectation, like through the week, that practice should be perfect, right? Like no ball should touch the ground from a quarterback's perspective. No ball should touch the ground, right? Like QBs, receivers, running backs should be perfect. And then again, when you walk out on the field, right? Like say you're even going against air. Like if you walk on the field saying, I have to be perfect today, it's a little bit like, oh, fuck. Like even on air, like, oh shit, like don't drop a ball. If I like miss this a little bit, like all of a sudden, like again, it's the wrong mindset. Well, you'd be in practice and say it's Thursday and you're practicing third downs. And, again, you're going against a scout team, right? Like, so these are the backups and practice squad guys, and they're trying to give the look of the team you're playing. And we got some great third down play that we've drawn up that week that should work. And we run it, and the scout team doesn't really give us a great look, and it doesn't fucking work. And like, I end up having to I throw it away or something. And then I had so many coaches like, do it again. And you're like, well, shit. Now the scout team they've already saw it once. Now they're definitely going to, and then it's not a great rep either because it's not realistic. Because now you're like, shit, we got to be perfect again. So you drop back. It's just it's like this miserable experience again. Like, because then the whole practice, you're like, fuck, every time we mess one up, we got to do it again. Like Jim was not like that. He was always, I'll never forget. He's like, we'll fix it in the film room. We'll coach it up, in the film room, right? Teach it later, like keep it moving. And a little bit more of it was always like this what's next mentality, like you were looking forward. And I think all these little things add to that, right? Like again, and I go back to this, like the coaches, there is like a team edge that they instilled, a psychology element to this, to even go back to like that entrepreneurial, idea of like what it was like when that company was smaller, like keeping that, right? Like fostering that as a leader. And Urban was no different. Like all the great coaches, Andy, like you stepped on the field with an edge as a team, right? Like, and it was confident, and you went out there to make plays, as opposed to again, like it's totally opposite. Like these negative coaches I've been around, you walked on the field and it was like, well, we can't take a sack, we can't throw an interception, we can't turn the ball over, like we can't have penalties, and the whole team walks out there like trying not to make a mistake. And then, it ends up happening is like, well, we could barely muster 200 yards off. We didn't take any sacks though. And we didn't turn the ball over, but we sucked, it's such a, so different. And it happens at the highest level. I've had NFL coaches that like, that's what was reinforced.
I think the place where I work now is actually a pretty good example of this like team edge. Like Sequoia, it is not normal for a venture firm to be like good for a long time. Now, this is not my work. This is other people's work, but like, Sequoia started in, 1972, right? 52 years ago. Like, look at any other venture firm that was started 52 years ago. Like they aren't ones that you hear about now, like it is the only one that's sort of maintained over a long period of time, like being good. And again, like through work, that's not mine. But like, I think that edge, that is very real. And what people always ask, like, well, what is it that makes it good? And I was like, it is the culture. And the culture is basically based around two things, performance and teamwork. Like there is absolutely a standard of like, we do not lose, right? And the companies that we back need to be the best companies. Now, sometimes like what will happen is like, we will not meet the standard. But like it is dealt with when you don't meet the standard. But like this thing of the next thing, Alex, it's so funny. Like the big thing that we all like write down over and over and over again is, we're only as good as our next investment. And it's actually an interesting thing, which is that like, it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. All that matters is what you do today. And I think that like, I don't know if you guys saw that Federer speech that he had, at Dartmouth, but he basically was like, you have to play every point like it's the most important thing. But as soon as it's done, you have to forget it. And I was like, wow, that's really good, And I think culturally, that is one thing that I think is good. We have, our own problems and all that stuff, but I do think it's not a coincidence that Sequoia has been good for a long time. And I'd say the biggest thing that it's a mix of positive and negative that the partners of Sequoia feel is like, you don't want to be the generation that messes it up, right? Because like so many generations have done it well that you're like, man, I got to leave it better than I found it. That's the positive version. And you get the room to do that. And then the pressure is like, don't be the generation that loses this thing. Like you were given something pretty good.
And Robbie, what's the turnover? That's a curious question I had about what's the turnover in terms of partners? I think that's a huge component of that.
Yeah, I mean, well, let me start. We're a performance culture, which means like there is real active management and it's lateral management because we're a partnership. But yeah, I mean, like, there's a fair amount of turnover. Like, you remember when you were talking about the heat, before about like, it's not for everyone and how that's like a draw.
Yep.
In my interview for Sequoia, Doug Leone, who was like our senior steward who was running the firm at the time, he is like, look, let me just tell you, like, if you don't perform, we're going to get rid of you. And I just want you to know that now. Like, we hope you perform. We think you're going to perform, but like, it is not going to be tolerated if you don't. And so you got to know that. And he was actually like using that as a positive to me of like, because I heard that as like, not just if I don't perform, but if anyone else doesn't perform, like we're always going to be a high performing team. So, I mean, Shane, I guess I would say like, I don't know the exact data, but like, our team looks really different than it did 10 years ago. It looks somewhat different than it did 5 years ago. And I think it's like it is constantly being reevaluated. Like I have this thing that I talk about, which is like, you should enthusiastically rehire your team. You should only keep people you would enthusiastically rehire. Like if you had 6 months and the best recruiter in the world, would you rather take that or would you rather take the person you got? Right. And if you'd rather take the person you got, great. If you'd rather take the recruiter, either turn that person into somebody you'd enthusiastically rehire or get rid of them. Right. You tell them that it's time to go. I think Sequoia lives that pretty well of like, either you're here because we want you here or you're not.
You're like Alabama football. You're more Alabama football than Duke basketball, I'd say.
Well, I mean, that of course I would aspire to be Duke basketball.
Save an era.
Yeah, like it feels. Listen, like that does not seem like a bad analogy to me.
Where does development fit in this? Because they're like, I mean, obviously you'd been in the entire industry, but this is the first time you're doing venture, right? I mean, ever. So the expectation that you're just going to come in ripping is crazy in my, like looking at it from an outsider's perspective, right? Like there's got to be some learning curve here to get up to speed and be able to learn and grow and make some mistakes.
This is one of the more interesting things about Sequoia or venture in general. It's an apprenticeship model. Like the development is an apprenticeship model. You have to study under people that are doing it. You have to study under multiple people that are doing it well, and you have to learn from them. And what's very interesting, in my opinion, about Sequoia in this respect is it requires a lot of effort and humility on both sides. So like, look, I joined Sequoia. I mean, I joined Sequoia, I was 38 years old. I had like done a few things in my career. I didn't join at 22. Right. And so but I don't know anything about how to invest, how to be a venture capitalist, how to make great investments in that space. Well, so I have to really put my ego aside and just be like, I am willing to sit and learn from people that are 10, 15 years younger than me, who are much better than me at this. And that was really hard for me. And I actually didn't do it very well at first, right? Because I was sort of like, I got all this to contribute. Why don't you guys want to hear what I think? I had come from a place where I was one of the leaders, right? And I was ready to espouse and like, just like Brother Battier likes a microphone, I don't mind having a microphone. I like having people listen to me. But like, it was very hard. So the first thing is, in order to be the person who's apprenticing, you have to have some humility and you got to really put your ego aside and be like, I know this, but I don't know this at all. And I got to start again. So that took some time. And frankly, there were some touch and go moments as to whether or not I'd get to stick around, because I wasn't just like learning.
Were you assigned anybody, or was there like did anybody? No, just kind of.
No, it's very much like go learn it from everyone. But then the thing that I'd say that people did who were teaching me, folks like Pat Grady and, Andrew Reed, Carl Eschenbach, what they did that was good was they had some humility too. So they would teach me the business, they would teach me the investing business, but then they would go out of their way sometime like, hey, what do you think about this company? How do you think this CEO or founder is doing? What do you think we could be doing here? And they found ways for me to be able to help them rather than just teach me. Because it would have been very hard for me to only be the student and to not be the teacher, you know? And I think that required like some real judgment and leadership on their part to like, not just be, I'm only the teacher, you know? But I tell you, Alex, like the development in our business, it's an apprenticeship business. You have to have people that have done it, as well as you have to have youth. Like the example that we always give as to why you have to have youth, right? Can you imagine what old people thought the first time they heard of Airbnb? Sequoia is the first investor in Airbnb, right? Can you imagine what you think if you're like
have young people around?
What? 40 plus, and someone's like,
you're gonna stay in my house?
You're not gonna rent a room. You're gonna rent an air mattress in my room. Did you remember? Think about the level of craziness that was. That was the air bed and breakfast. And the idea was air mattresses. Okay. And if you only had like old heads around, people would be like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. But if you have some youth around, all of a sudden it's like, no, I would do that. Like, oh yeah, actually, I don't want to stay in a hotel. And so you actually need this combination, and it's actually quite difficult to do. Right. But anyway, yeah, like you are totally right that you need to develop. Maybe I'd say this, Alex, the way I would put it is, we will teach you, but you need to take responsibility for your own development, and you need to put in the time, and you need to want to work at it. And if you want to work at it, like we'll meet you there, but we're not going to like put it out on a silver platter. Like one of the things Doug talked about a lot is like, we need to let you wander into the abyss. We got to let you get there. Cause that's when you sort of realize like, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like that's what it took for me, was like, man, like I keep on trying to act like I know, and I don't know at all. And you kind of have to like be willing to go say that of like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do a good reference. I don't know how to write a good memo. You know, I don't know how to do any of this. You are so right. I mean, and I didn't even think about what you just said, but you're so right. I mean, it is explicit. Like one of the things, again, like, you know, the historical leaders of Sequoia have always talked about, it's like, we don't want a well-rounded person. We want a team of spiky people who happen to turn us into a group that is complete, right? But we want people to be spiky. And, you know, that is like always the thing that people are looking for, is like, where are you kind of, you know, messed up almost, and where are you really good? And it's almost like, Alex, like to the chip on the shoulder, it's like, we want to find people with a chip on their shoulder, but in just the right place, right? Like, and everybody, like the thing that ties people together, I would say it's Sequoia, but then, you know, I do think this is in venture writ large, but like the spec of what we look for at Sequoia is two things. We look for people who are hyper competitive with a heart of gold, is the way we talk about it. Like we want people that are good people at their core, but we want them to be fucking competitive, like, you know, can't sleep, like that level. And then we want them to be good at different things.
No doubt. Shane, I couldn't agree with you more. Like you every great team has got some Jack Daniels drinkers. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they got the spiky guys. Like you need some guys to kind of infuse that edge. However, it's such a fine line because you go too far, right? And that equilibrium shifts. And then, you know, like that, then it's not about the team, right? And again, I think that balance of a leader, like where do you find that? And how do you manage that? Because it's always, you know, it's kind of always in flux a little bit, depending on how smoothly things are going. You know, are you winning? Are you flying high or not? Because I do feel like sometimes when you hit the troughs, like that's when those personalities can try to tear things apart, right? Sometimes, and you got to try to like keep things together. But without a doubt, I never knew it when I was in it, right? Like you don't know that, but in hindsight, like those guys, and it's funny, those are oftentimes like the teammates that I remember. Sometimes when things are going rough, and again, like people are trying to pretend like it's not happening, you want the fucking guy that's going to say, this sucks. We suck today, right? Like this is not good enough, and we need to pick our shit up, right? Like, and like it's uncomfortable sometimes, and it's often like way more confrontational than what I just said, but you need it, right? And again, it's not, you don't like it when it's happening, but in hindsight, it's like, we would never have been the team we were if we didn't have those guys.
Alex, what's the best example of something that happened that in the moment you're like, oh shit, but that you look back on and you're like, this was important. Like, would make it real of like the someone saying we sucked or whatever, but you're like, oh, it's much worse than that. Like, give us an example of like a time that happened.
A couple things come to mind. Like one, for me, like in football, even to go back to like Jim Harbaugh, like there's no hiding, right? You couldn't hide. And I've been on a lot of teams where we talked to this where like guys could hide. And I felt like as a quarterback, like I got the ball in my hand. And so to put it in perspective, like let's say I played like the 20th percentile, right, of starting quarterbacks in the NFL, which is fucking terrible, right? And I've been there. I've been there. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Like 7-year-old kids know you're not holding up your end. And vice versa, like when you play to like a winning standard, right? Like say you play to the 80th percentile, like I'm just saying like winning football, good football, like it's very clear like that difference. For a lot of places though, like if you're the left guard or the strong safety, like nobody knows the difference. Like the average person doesn't know the difference from watching on TV, the guy that's playing to the 20th percentile or the 80th. Like no idea on that. And so like you have guys that are just on scholarship and can hide, right? And the only people that can actually like call out that variance oftentimes are like the coaches. Like you know what I'm saying? Like we're being instructed to run this system, run this play versus this defense, and like, who, and that was the thing I always loved with when Jim came in is like, no, everybody's freaking going to play to like has to play winning football. And there was no hiding. I don't care if you're the fullback, the outside linebacker, like, and for me as a quarterback, then it actually like finally made me relax a little bit because I didn't feel like I had to like do too much, right? Like just do your job. Like that's like the only expectation. Like, and if it's to throw the flat route, throw the freaking flat route. And that's like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's winning football. And I didn't feel like it was all on me. So Jim was very good about like calling guys out. Like, and it was in the film room. Like you could walk in on a Monday and like in our offensive meeting and like, I'd never seen like, well, oh shit, the right guard's getting crushed right now. Like, I'm like, very specific details on plays. Like, no, you know what I'm saying? And like that had never happened before. And so certainly even at this point, it was the coach.
Being an NFL quarterback, though, that's a little bit different. And, it's kind of hard to hide in the middle of 80,000 screaming people. So like, yes.
Toughest job in sports.
Robbie was CFO. I was I hid in the corner and shot corner three for many years. But it's hard. It's hard to get by hiding and not doing your job as a quarterback. It's out there. A little different dynamic.
No doubt. But I guess for me, like going back to the team aspect of like whether they be leaders or teammates, like the guys that like the spiky, the edge guys. That call things out. I mean, typically they were defensive guys because defensive guys typically were much spikier than offensive guys. Offensive guys had to stay like level headed and think. We were constantly like, it was a little more of a chess match. Like defensive guys, it's a little bit like, go get the ball, like go hunt. You know what I'm saying? And so like therefore like by mindset, they like, that's what it was. And so like, like the Justin Smiths of the world and Patrick Willis's of the world, like these guys, you know what I'm saying? Like you can't go play defense like without an edge, right? Like you're going into combat, you know what I'm saying? Whereas like the left tackle by nature, it's a slow death, right? Like if you do a great job, you're just retreating. You know what I'm saying? Like pass blocking is like literally retreating.
Those guys are nasty though. All right.
At a slow rate.
They're still nasty guys.
Yeah.
Nasty guys.
But like defensive linemen are totally the opposite, right? Like it's like they're sharks and there's like blood in the water. So like, and that is the personality difference of like the yin and the yang, like within a locker room, right? Like especially offense to defense.
I like that. I think that the thing you said about Harbaugh, I actually think this is a huge deal that I noticed too. If like you're going to be calling people out, you have to call everybody out in order to have any credibility. You can't be the one who like never talks to one of the guys. And I actually think that you can tell who the leader, like I've been in places, you can see who sometimes the leader's scared of because they don't want to piss that person off. And then they say stuff to the other ones. They don't say it to that person. Right. And then I feel like you lose all your credibility as a leader if people can see that you like don't do it to that one, but you kind of have somebody that you'll say it to all the time. Shane, you and I talk about this all the time. People can just sniff bullshit from so far away. They can just tell immediately. Like it all gets exposed if you're the leader. And so if it's like you want to have an accountable culture, you got to call out everybody. Like you have to do it that way.
Well, I think Coach K said it really, really well. He said, I will not all treat you equally. I will not, but I will treat each of you fairly, which is all you can hope for, right? That's pretty good. All right. So what are you gonna say? He's like, no, I'm not gonna treat you like I treat Trajan Langdon. All right. He's our all-American starting two guard. I'm sorry.
It reminds me of something like Harbaugh would be like, it's a meritocracy.
Yeah.
You get what you earn, and I'll treat you accordingly.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as everyone is treated fairly. If you're treating people unfairly, okay, now you have a gripe. But if it is a meritocracy, and the winners write the history books, and if you've earned that, you've earned that.
Well, the thing about that though, that's so good. That's so good. Such a good line. I'm going to steal that line. And I'll attribute it to Coach K, but I won't attribute it to you first. I'll just say I heard it from Coach K, I think. But like the thing that's interesting about that is I think if you take spiky people, you can't treat them equally because you can't have the same rules, but you can treat them fairly. But the other thing is you actually have to get to know them to know what really fires them up or pisses them off. And I think that the whole point is that like, if everybody's different, if everybody actually has something that is unique to them, like your job is to actually figure out what it is and avoid or only touch the live wire when you want to, right? But not do the same thing with each person. Like they have to motivate you differently than they would motivate even like Dunleavy, right? Like you told me that like a lot of what Coach K would do with you was like try to compare you to previous Duke basketball greats.
Challenge you, yeah.
Yeah, make you feel like you're not up to their standard, which I would just imagine knowing you how fucking pissed you'd be, right? Of him doing that. But it was like so good. That's the right way to deal with you.
Don't you think he's trying to get you trying to develop a spike a little bit?
Yeah.
And I think
it's Mike D can give a shit. Mike D can give a shit whether he was like Christian Laettner or not.
Right.
I do think like it's funny as we were sitting here talking about this, and I didn't think it was a good thing to be spiky when I was like in college and as an early pro. Like I wanted to be the good guy. I wanted to be the like overtly like, and not saying that spiky people aren't good people, but like, I'm saying? Like I wanted to be the ultra team guy. And not only for me as an individual, but then even as a team, like I've so flipped on this now where like, even like as a parent in my own household, like I want my kids edgy, right? Like you want to like almost foster that. Like I'm my son's like getting ready to play a soccer game, my 13-year-old, and I'm like, those kids from Marin think they're going to kick your ass.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? They think they're better than you. Like I've tried, and it's fun. Like I've just kind of I used to think that that wasn't necessarily like a great thing or a term, but I absolutely think like not only from an individual standpoint, but from a team standpoint, any team you're part of, you want that, right? Like you don't want them just floating day to day. Like you want edge, like you want mission.
But also, Ravi, correct me if I'm wrong. Like we're not talking spiky in terms of just being prickly. Spiky could be greatness in even, in one area. Someone could be an amazing worker, but a horrible strategist, and that's okay. They're spiky with their ethic, right? And so spiky in this case isn't necessarily being a jack drinker, literally, but it's having strengths and maybe blind spots. And this goes back to our glue guy conversation. Like, everyone wants to be good at everything. And if you no one wants to admit they have deficiencies in any area because no, but what are we talking about? I can be a strategist. No, but we just need you to be an operator and just grind for us, right? And so I took that as like being spiky in terms of understanding your strengths, identifying your weaknesses, and not letting that be a bad thing, right?
My language is different. Yeah, it's exactly what you said. Spiky for me means like, what are you great at? Right. What is, from McKinsey, like, what is your spike in terms of skill set? Right. And so if our job is picking what company to invest in or finding a company, picking what company to invest in, winning the deal and being a good board member, like, what are you best at, best in the world at? And then like, let's lean into that. So what, the spike there. And then what I'd say, Alex, for the language that I put on for what you're saying is edgy. I think that there is value in having an edge, right? And having that amongst you. But for spiky, for us, it means a little bit more of what you're saying, Shane. And I think the interesting thing is on that, like when it works, it's sort of like, yeah, we need you to do this. We need you to we need you to play this role. We need you to play this role. But it's funny, like even when you compliment somebody, and I fall into this, right? If you compliment somebody on something they're good at, most of the people, if they're really competitive, they hear the thing that you're saying they're bad at. So when people sometimes say to me like, oh, you're really good with people, I'm like, no, motherfucker, I'm good at math. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, I didn't even say anything. I just said you're good with people. And I'm like, no, I hear you saying I'm bad at math. I'm good at math, you know, and like, but this is where like that to me is the combination of spiky and having an edge. Like I have something that I'm good at, and then I also feel like confrontational sometimes on, you know, if somebody compliments me. It's like if somebody says to you, you're a great defender. You're like, hey man, I shot fucking 43% from 3-point land. You know, like, what do you mean I'm a great defender? And so I find that to me is like the hallmark of people that have a spike but also have an edge. You give them a compliment, and then they fucking they're a little mad at you.
No doubt. And I don't mean that absolutely you want well-rounded like skill sets from a team, especially, you know, if you requires that different roles, like, you know, different specialties, I should say. However, even within that, right, like the great defender or the great shooter or the great seed investor or growth, like I still think you're fostering and want the edge as well, right? Like it's not just the skill set, it's the personality trait, and to you, what you just said, the competitiveness, right? Like you need that. You don't want the guy or a culture where again, you're just kind of adrift.
When I was growing up, a chip on your shoulder was just like a universally negative thing to say about somebody, right? Like, you know, basically it's like a way of saying that someone was a dick, right? Like, and you don't want to be around. And it's crazy as I've grown up that it's turned into like this potentially huge positive. Like the founders we back, we're always trying to find like, what is the thing that motivates them? And I think the reason is, I think a chip on your shoulder is actually like enduring motivation. It's like something that you are going to feel, and it's going to keep you going kind of no matter what. And that's why I think it's actually sort of like has the potential to be positive, right? Because like, don't you think?
I feel like so, and it's funny, retirement from football for me. Like, again, I just turned 40. Like that's been the great, I think, realization for me is like, I don't have a chip right now. Like I had a freaking chip. Like, and it was like, I developed and fostered this thing that like, no assholes, I'm not a game manager, just a game, you know, like I can freaking do this. Like, and
how do you feel, son? How do you feel, son? Tell us how you feel.
Right. Like, and then you step away from the game, and I was, you know, it was my decision and so lucky, but like, and certainly like being a dad and a husband, like that's what's most important to me. But like, I don't have I'm in search of and trying to find, and I can't believe like I never would have said that 20 years ago. Like I wouldn't have thought that way. And it's like, no, yeah, I think it's good to have a freaking chip, like a healthy level.
Have you found one in post-basketball retirement, Shane?
No. No. I identify with that. Well, look.
Is that when I kick his ass on a golf course?
Well, yeah, that's like a minor chip, you know. I mean, I'm still waiting for that day. So, you know.
Yeah, me too. I'm waiting for that day too.
I have a winning for the note. For both podcast hosts, I have a winning record against Lifetime in Golf.
That's right. That's true. So, that's true. I'm coming for you, Shane. I'm coming
as it stands now. That's okay. That's okay. You see, you have a chip, you know, and I'm a fat cat. I'm just happy to just rest on my laurels here.
But more for the chip, though, I do think, like, again, in hindsight, like when I had, like, thinking about it, like going, like when you have one, like you love going to work. Like I love, like, you know what I'm saying, chasing it. Like I think it again, and it just like that connotation is shifted. You said it, Ravi, is like so much for me, the term chip on your shoulder. Like, I think it's a positive. I think it's positive when individuals have it, obviously to a healthy degree, and teams, you need it. I think, you know, even as leaders, like you got to have, I think there is a level of like obsession there that has to, you know, go prove people wrong, like whatever the motivation is. But I think to go achieve a great thing, a difficult thing, like you kind of, there has to be a level of it.
Ravi, I mean, you're in the same boat, okay? Instacart IPOs, all right? Yeah, get past your blackout dates. You're liquid now.
Yeah,
right.
Lockup's over.
Lockup is over. The day that you thought about the day you thought about
the record
this.
show. I am a board member and a long-term believer. Okay, let the record show.
No, but like that's no different than when Alex signed his big extension, and when I signed my extension from the great Jerry West. May he rest in peace. Like that was it. Like, okay, this is something we've thought about and dreamed about and hoped about and prayed that, like, hey, just get me to this day. Just get me to this day. And then everything's going to be okay. Right. And so we've all had that chip defining moment, be satisfied, and revving up that engine for the next thing. It's different. It can't be the same. It cannot be the same as it was before. So redefining your chip once you've had a little bit of success and reached your dreams, like it's really hard. It's really hard.
I mentioned earlier that I'm envious of the experiences you earned as professional athletes. I'm not envious of the kind of like needing to redefine in your 40s. Like that is way harder than like someone who did not have the career you guys had, right? Like for me, one thing that creates a chip is like I play in a difficult game now every day, right? Like this thing, you have to kind of come and do it. And I think that like that is definitely different. I think, Shane, though, to your point, I think we sometimes think we're going to get like fulfillment or happiness out of something, and then it happens and it kind of like it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be, right? Like you told me, yeah, like I put the Instacart success on like the highest pedestal. Oh my God, we just got to get public. We got to be a great company. And like literally the next morning, I remember you texted me. It's like, hey man, how's everything going? Does your wife still love you? Do your kids still love you? Like, is there anything different? It's sort of like, no, like everything's the same. And what's so crazy is the thing that I actually remember about that is like the hugs I had with the people that like helped build it. Right. And the hugs I had with the team that's there, that was actually like the moment that like is enduring much more so than anything else. It's like the fact that we did it. Right. And I think that, but I guess what I'd say is this, listen, I didn't get to have the highs you guys have had, but it is an easier redefining for me, to find the chip than it is for you guys, cause like, dude, think about like, there's like gladiator shit for sports, like, people screaming in the middle of the arena. Like you got to like find that somewhere else. I mean, I never had that. Like the thing that I have, like my games, I still get to have some games, even as I, get up there in age.
For the record, there's no one who's listening to this who will ever give us empathy for this.
No, hell no. Hell no.
But there will come a point in every person who ever listens to this podcast when you will be the ex of something. Right? Whether your kids go to a school and you're the ex dad or you're the ex chairman, you will find a time when something that meant a lot to you is no longer your day job.
It's why transitions are so hard in life, right? And we all have transitions. So certainly ours are very unique, Shane, like stepping away, but like everybody has transitions. And I do think though, there's still like, again, like I don't think there's anything wrong with going and finding it. Right? Like I'm searching for it and finding it and developing it and fostering it, right? And being around people that are going to help. Like I think that's all, they're not easy. It takes time. And you know what I'm saying? Like it's different for everybody, but you got to admit it. Like we were talking about. Yeah. I think going back, it first. The feeling was so different. And for me for a little while and I tried to put my finger on it and like, what's different? And it is that like the chip's gone, like it just,
Alex, so someone who's been coached all their lives, like, what's the role of a coach in defining that for you, right? Having a Harbaugh, having an Urban Meyer, defining like, hey, Alex, get your head out of your butt and don't throw the ball. Don't throw the ball low anymore, right? You'd love for someone to tell you, hey, don't throw it behind the receiver now, right? Wouldn't you?
I think every great story we've talked about, certainly from like if it's Henry Kravitz trying to foster again that entrepreneurial spirit of his company that has grown into a corporate thing. Right? Like you're trying to keep that. Like if it's, again, Coach K, like Urban telling us again, constantly, like no one believes in you guys. They all think we suck. Like, like again, there's a psychology element, I think, to every great leader and coach. And it's not only on a one-on-one basis because everybody's different, right? Like the tough love thing, Ravi, like who needs to be built up, who needs to be checked a little bit, like all that stuff. But as a team in general, you want to build that culture, right? Like that. And I think, again, it's infectious, right? Like when you're in those environments, when the people next to you have it, when your leader's talking to you like that, you do build and foster that. And I absolutely think every great coach and leader does that as part of what they do outside of the strategy, right? Outside of the X's and O's or the go-to-market. Like, it is also the culture of the room, of the building, is fostering that edge.
I think you definitely need it. You need somebody you respect giving you an opinion sometimes of like, yo, you're not doing it. This is not it. You can do better than this. And I actually think about it for you guys, which is like, what are the role that friends can play in doing that? Which is like, look, like, I could imagine motivating you guys or pissing you off by being like, you're going to go meet with these people. They just think you're former athletes. They think you're dumb. They don't think you have anything to add. Like, you should go and prove it to them. Like, man, you can imagine anything, like, but you have to figure out like, what is the role that different people play in kind of getting you motivated for different things, versus just like, it's interesting. Like, I think like sometimes being a good friend is being tough on somebody. And I don't know, like, you have to, like, what are the occasions where you are tough on somebody? Like, you got to really work and to find those things.
It's hard. People don't like feedback. People they do not want to be, that's a sacred cow that people do not want to be touched. Right. And so as much as people want to say, be truthful, be honest with me, tell me what you think. There have been a lot of situations in my life where I've tried to be truthful and direct with people. And maybe because the way my delivery, as my wife says, it's your delivery, Shane.
Were they your golf teammates that weren't holding up their end, and you're like, you guys need to pick your shit up. Your putting sucks.
Ravi makes a joke. I've been known to write a strongly worded letter to my friends and tell them that the standards of our friendship are not being met right now. And so, people are out there. People have
such a Duke thing to do.
A handwritten letter outlining the facts, are very unemotional, very rational. Like, hey, this ain't gonna fly. And
well, I've never received one of these letters. I'm very happy to report. Okay,
they're rare. But I believe in again, being truthful, being honest, being direct, and it's worked out sometimes, but most time it's not been great. It's not been great, and so I laugh when we talk about the role of friends and how to be direct and honest. It's really hard. It's really hard because people don't often want the direct truth from somebody else.
You know what? I have a friend who says sometimes, it's such a good question. He's like, do you want the truth? Do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to be supportive before he talks? And it's like a great setup, because it's like, well, he definitely has something to say. Fuck. But like, do I want to hear that right now? The tough, Alex, you'll laugh at this. The toughest feedback I've ever gotten from Shane actually was on the golf course when we were partnered one time. And Shane's having a good round. I was not having a great round. And Shane, the whole time, no apologies. Like, listen, we're on a team. He didn't break it for the whole 18 holes. Like, the whole time, just like there with me, like, it's all good. No apologies. We're good. But then later, after we had a couple drinks, Shane, a little bit of like, man, how the fuck did you leave a 30-foot putt 15 feet short? Like, can you just help me understand, like, how that is something that you could do out there? And I'll tell you, I was taken aback. I was, I had not received that kind of tough love from Mr. Battier, but it was good. I started working on my game after.
Well, again, I go back to the Coach K thing. Yeah, the opposite of love is not hate; it's apathy. All right. If I had never said anything to you, ever again, that's when you would have to worry.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, it's indifference.
And it was only because I had high expectations of you. Alex and I were talking earlier before. Like, you can give feedback to people if you always qualify it with I'm giving you this feedback because I know you can reach the standard. Right? Like, that is the most important thing. Because I believe in you. If I didn't believe in you and didn't think you had the potential to get to here, then I wouldn't even be wasting my time. But I believe in you. And I think that gives you a fighting chance for people to know that, hey, he cares about me enough to say this. It sucks and I hate it. And I disagree. I think you're an asshole, Shane, but I get it. You know, when I retired, I read this blog and I was searching for self-meaning and going through all the exercises, the journaling. And one of the things that I came across, and it was really, really, really hard. My brother just passed away and I was searching for anything. And I read a blog about the hardest email you'll ever have to write. And it was an exercise in you identify like 20 of your closest people and you write them an email and you say, hey, look, I'm looking for the most direct feedback that you can give. And so I'm giving you carte blanche to this one time only to tell me where I could be better. Right now, you talk about scary emails to open. Man, and everyone wrote back, and everyone really was thoughtful about their feedback to me. And you know, luckily, most everyone said, you know, there's not a lot of shame. We love you. You know, you had a huge heart. You listen. You try to make community. You know, sometimes you know. And it was an invaluable piece of data and a very scary exercise. And that's something I've ever done before. And hopefully we'll never have to do again, unless I'm a real jerk and trying to look for it. But it was a really interesting exercise. And so if you ever really want to test, you know, how much feedback you really can take, and if you're searching for ways to really, really improve, email your 20 closest friends and give them that permission the one time. Hey, give me some things I can work on. And really, really powerful exercise.
No, I'm not ready for that.
I love that idea. I was wondering the same thing. I'm like,
I was just
imagine
thinking,
you did that in a team setting.
Yeah,
you know,
no.
Can't be sensitive though.
I get my 360 review, you know, every year. And I'm like a feedback guy, right? Like, you know, we got to talk to each other. We got to tell each other the truth. And I'm like, you know, very disciplined on like always first thing. Thank you for the feedback. You got to do it. And every time I get my fucking 360 review, my first reaction is I'm pissed off. To this day, you know, and I'm like, I'm the feedback guy, you know? And so like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, not right now. I'm not ready.
Ravi, my only feedback for you is you leave putts short. Other than that, you're a pretty good guy.
I am short. Is that what you said?
No, I said the only feedback I give you is you're a hell of a guy, but you leave too many putts short.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing about you, man. That's the worst thing about you.
I appreciate that.
Those don't go in, Ravi. It's like throwing a ball out of bounds. They're never completed.
I know. You know, Shane was basically giving me the feedback. You got to put it longer. You got to get it to the hole. You know, like really, really helping me out. No, the worst part was the real vibe was like you let me down. You know, he used some analogy of like, you know, the dishes are gonna get done. You know, but they don't always have to get done by the same guy. Like, you know, you just relying on me to do the dishes. And I was like, oh man, that is true.
A little softer than that.
You were soft. But I knew it had taken a lot to get you there because you're very forgiving of me on the golf course, you know. But you had, you know, this is good. I'd reached the new standard of you having high expectations for me. Alex, I think Shane is a positive coach. That's for sure. This guy, he as a teammate, he's always like, you could, you know, you're my guy. We're together on this. We're a team. You know, he's the ultimate teammate, I would say.
Well, being negative never helps, you know, and I am a Pollyanna when I'm out there, and you know, you want to raise people up. Hey, you got it, man. Got it. Go for it. Take that shot. Oh, you got the shot. You're trying to cut around the corner. Do it, man. Do it. If you feel it, go for it. And you know, that comes from my dad growing up. He was always positive. There was never anything negative, you know, little league. And so like my little league teams were always just like super positive. All right, man, you got this. And I remember a kid named Joshua Farlow-Walgas. It was just he was out in the right field picking daisies during the game. And, you know, it would have been very easy for us to bag on Josh. And like, you know, we pumped him up. And when he got that, I think he had one hit the entire year. When he did, man, it was like winning the World Series. And so I'll never forget that. Just like, it's like, do the easy things, you know, right. And being positive is such an easy thing. It's such a free thing. And it doesn't hurt anybody. Just lift your teammates up.
Ravi, it's the mindset of a shooter. You just always think you're going to make the one. It doesn't matter if you've missed the 12 prior.
Totally.
This one's going down, right?
Totally.
You just
But
shoot. You have to have that.
Gotta
to be a
have
great
it.
shooter. Because if you're thinking about the ones you just missed, you're screwed, right? Like
That's definitely right. Just to go back for a second, you guys will laugh at this. So, I have this theory that, we should not just have golf caddies, but we should have a life caddy. Okay. That the caddy should come with you just all the time. Like, hey man, this deal feels like it's a little, you don't feel like you're comfortable yet. Why don't you take a step back and rethink this one? Like, oh no, you're hitting it great. Like, go for it. Like, this is the time. And so I realized I also have a caddy type, which I think teaches me what kind of leadership I like, which is I like the Sherpa relaxed caddy, the guy who's always bringing you down a little bit of just like, yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We're going to be fine. We're just out here having fun, So I don't know, Shane, I think you might have a different caddy type than me. I think you like a little bit more, specificity in the feedback. I like the guy who's just calming me down, just getting me to be me.
Just tell me the number. Tell me where I got to hit it. Tell me where I got to land the ball, and I'm going to do it. Right. Yeah. So I'm coachable. So like, I got it. Okay. I have a bad shot. I got it. Just give me the right number. Give me the right wind. Give me, hit it here and I will do it. So that's what I like.
What about you, Alex?
How about you,
Alex?
I need the caddy to be able to identify my skill level and give me, instruction and guidance that matches, right? Like I love the caddy. Like I'm not a +2, dude. Like I can't, that shot you're asking me to do. Right. And also like tight lie, like short game. Give me the putter. Just hand me the putter. Right. Like I'm, like I don't want the 60-degree wedge here, like in this match on a hole that meant a lot, like for the, whatever we're playing for. Like this is not going to turn out well for me. And I need you to identify that and not, that's
Alex, it sounds to me like, honestly, it sounds to me like you're saying you want the caddy to recognize that you're a bit of a game manager when it comes to golf.
No doubt.
It feels like that. That's kind of what I hear you say.
Yeah, I'm straight. Well, like this is the best thing. Like on any given day, I mean, I'm a pretty volatile player. Like there's days I'm striping it. Let's go. But like, no, there's days I'm not. Let's bring this bad boy in. Huh? Let's keep it in keep it in play.
We have to call this pod game managers. The game managers.
There's sometimes my golf game I don't play with an edge. I can be very honest that it's a humbling sport and I lose an edge very fast.
Golf's a hard sport to have an edge on. Very few people play well pissed off. It's hard. It's hard to sustain.
Totally, dude.
Maybe I should try. Maybe that's my problem though. I'm not like.
I do not think that is
no,
the right.
No, I've played against you, Alex. I've when you have to make a putt, I've seen that look. If
I was pissed off, I might make it.
I think that for the next golf trip, we might need to give one team beta blockers. Just have them be really calm the whole time. I think those are allowed. Just to ease up a little bit.
It's called high noon. That's the beta blocker.
All right, take it easy, guys.
All right, fellas.
Hey.